rest of the world. Our leaders not only encouraged us, but they also showed support financially. President Ruto's announcement of $20 million to the African Development Bank Fund was a huge testament that African countries are walking the talk. Thank you very much, President Ruto. You, our governors, provided incredible support for the bank. The governors' dialogue, which lasted for over 6 hours, sorry we had to keep it that long, but it was a very important subject. That was a demonstration of your resilience, actually, to have stayed that long, 6 hours. But most importantly, your individual and collective commitment as shareholders to the African Development Bank, your own bank. In another historic decision, you, the governors, collectively approved new general callable capital for the African Development Bank with $117 billion. What a momentous occasion. What a show of confidence. What a show of commitment. Dear governors, you showed yet once again that you believe in the African Development Bank. Your extraordinary support will make the bank stronger while maintaining its AAA as it drives the accelerated development of Africa. You showed, governors, commitment to the bank to be bigger, bolder, and better. Your decision has lifted the authorized general capital of the bank, your bank, from $201 billion to $318 billion. The bank is now bigger, and we will be bolder and better. The reform of the global financial architecture was at the heart of every discussion in the meetings, from panels to informal discussions over tea, over coffee, over meals, at dinner, at lunch, except on the dance floors. And on the dance floors, the conversations were completely different. We were encouraged by the recognition and appreciation of the leadership role of the African Development Bank on financial innovations globally, including on the hybrid capital on the global capital market, the first ever by a multilateral development bank, as well as our work and leadership on synthetic securitizations, as well as portfolio risk insurance, among many. You, our governors, commended the success of our efforts, working together with our partner institution and sister institution, Inter-American Development Bank, on the rechanneling of special drawing rights to multilateral development banks and the approval of the use of these special drawing rights, SDRs, as hybrid capital by the board of the International Monetary Fund. And I want to once again reiterate here our own appreciation to Kristalina Georgieva and all the staff and the board members of the International Monetary Fund for this major development. We look to you, our shareholders, to help make the rechanneling of the SDRs now a reality for Africa, a reality that will help to transform the lives and livelihoods of our people and support us in our quest to create hope for our youth and to turn them into the biggest economic dividend of our continent. We heard from you, our governors, very strong support and endorsement of our drive to mobilize greater private sector financing for Africa. You have our word and you have our commitment. We will. We heard over the past 5 days about the importance of partnerships. So let's dream together for a better Africa. Let's turn our dreams into reality. Several people turned our dreams for this annual meeting into reality. I wish to thank the government of Kenya for its incredible organization and support for the annual meetings. The first-rate team put together, ably led by Professor Ndungu, the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury and the chairperson of our Board of Governors and Governor of Kenya for the African Development Bank Group, did a fantastic job. How can we thank enough James Muhati? Right over there. Permanent Secretary for Economic Planning and the team leader. Keep on standing, please. Yes. Permanent Secretary for Economic Planning and the team leader for the hosting of the African Development Bank work here, these annual meetings here at the bank. How can we thank enough James for working so tirelessly, relentlessly, and passionately? How can we thank his team enough? So please, the team of the Permanent Secretary, please join him in standing as well. Thank you. How can we thank enough the Permanent Secretary of National Treasury, Dr. Chris Kiptu, for his strong support even yesterday night while we were there in Safari Park. There were documents flying over the table between him and the Cabinet Secretary because they are in their budget approval process. And yet, he came. And yet, he danced. Yes, he participated. Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary, National Treasury. I would like to thank the entire Cabinet and all the local organizing team of the Treasury, and I want you all collectively to please stand, now led by the Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Cabinet Secretary, you and your team, please. Please help me in thanking them. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Now, I did tell you that when I was asked what I will miss the most when my term expires next year, I didn't have to think twice, as I told you in my opening statement, that I will miss my staff the most. So I would like to thank the entire team of the African Development Bank for their exceptional work, for their working together with the Kenyan team that helped to deliver these impressively successful annual meetings. Please, my staff, please stand to be recognized. And of course, as a well-governed institution, all our decisions are passed through, filtered by a board of directors that has a committee just dedicated for the annual meetings called ECAM. They work tremendously to make sure program, presentations, sessions, panels, governors' dialogue, how you're going to do it. And I know some of my executive directors don't like being called up to stand. I understand. If you don't want to stand, those that don't want to, you can wave. It's okay. But from my side, as president and chairman of the board of directors, I think you are exceptional. Please stand and recognize my board of directors. Wherever they are, those that want to stand and those that want to wave, thank you. You know, I was talking to the Cabinet Secretary that the job of a Permanent Secretary or Cabinet Secretary or Minister of Finance is actually quite an interesting job. When you go to Parliament to go ask for money, you become like a violinist. And you go out and you say, they ask you all the questions, and His Excellency Mudavadi used to also be Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, so he knows what I'm saying. So you take your violin out, and they ask you all the questions, and you say, yes, 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 yes. And then they give you all the money. And then you go back to your offices and all the ministers start coming. Everybody wants more money. Everybody wants increase in budget. And you take your violin out and you say, no, 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 no. And this was told to me by the Minister of Finance of Morocco. So I just want to thank you for using your violin to say, yes, 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 yes. And that's how we can have such a great annual meeting. And also for my board of directors for always using that part of it, at least for this annual meeting, to say, we, et on parle après. Thank you to the staff of the Kenya International Conference Center for their great work for making us to work in very comfortable environments. Thank you very, very much. Thank you to the interpreters who helped us to understand ourselves. Thank you to the security from transport, the protocol teams, the health teams who supported us and who provided warm hospitality. Yes, our meetings have been long. They had to be. Guess what? We are in Kenya. Kenyans always do marathon racing. And they always win. And please, if you are into long distance racing and you get onto any stage and they tell you a Kenyan is there, Kenyan row number 1, 2, 3, please pack your track suit and your spike shoes and go home. Because they are going to win first, second, and third. But, you can clap for them, yes? But I just want to say that the rest of us that cannot do 5,000 have an advantage over you. I don't see how Kenya can beat Nigeria in soccer. And the reason is very simple. The stadium is too short. So it takes 5,000 meters for a Kenyan to warm up. Before they warm up, we will have scored all the goals and taken the cup. It's been a marathon of meetings. But we also had another marathon of dancing. Oh my goodness. Yesterday, well, I mean, you governors, I have dancing governors too. They support us, but these guys can dance. As the annual meetings now come to an end, we leave with Kenya with hope and excitement. Hope for a brighter future for Africa. Hope for a brighter 60 years ahead for the African Development Bank Group. Maybe, as President Ruto said, in 30 years, we might be back here again in Kenya to celebrate 90 years of the African Development Bank, because you were there for the 30th, you were there for the 60th, and I agree with the Cabinet Secretary and the President that even if we are walking on walking stick, maybe in 30 years, we'll be back here for you to do that. But thank you because we enjoy your hospitality. We've enjoyed our time tremendously in Kenya. We live with such fond memories. Now, all that remains for me is to wish you, dear governors, delegates, safe travels back home. Thank you so very much. Merci beaucoup. Muito obrigado. Shukran. Asante sana.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your closing remarks. At this juncture, may protocol please be in position to bring in the new bureau. Côte d'Ivoire. China. I understand that China had to leave early. Democratic Republic of Congo. In the new elected bureau, Côte d'Ivoire is chairperson, China is first vice chairperson, and Democratic Republic of Congo is second vice chairperson. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite the Honorable Professor Njuguna Ndungu, AFDB Governor for Kenya, and the outgoing chairperson of the Boards of Governors to deliver a statement.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me acknowledge the presence of His Excellency the Prime Cabinet Secretary of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. Musalia Mudavadi. Let me also recognize the President of the African Development Bank Group, my friend for a long time, Dr. Adesina. Great to see you in Kenya and to remember your home, your second home. Your Excellencies and fellow governors, distinguished guests, it is indeed amazing that the week has moved very fast. I think the week of an annual meeting is fairly too fast. I don't know how we can slow it, because I didn't realize that the week will end, but it has come to an end. It was fast because it was really congested or concentrated with so many activities and so many areas to cover. And so we were not very conscious about time. We were conscious about the issues that we were dealing with. Let me register my profound appreciation for the active participation of the last 1 week of the 2024 annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group. You came and participated as key stakeholders because you support and strongly believe in African Development Bank and Africa at large. So I thank you for your presence and the roles you played during these crucial meetings, with no doubt, are going to be very impactful. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, we are in an era of multiple and persistent shocks. These challenges are also immense, and they cover a lot of perhaps diverse areas in the African region. But it's also an era of hope, because where there is a crisis, we should make sure that we don't let the crisis pass without taking advantage of that crisis. Where there is crisis, there must be some opportunities. We therefore call for stronger African Development Bank Group that can work with us and address our development challenges for a better future. In a world of uncertainty, it is more important for us to have the mind, assume the vision, shoulder the responsibility, and even play the role that come along with our status as major beneficiaries of the African Development Bank. The theme, Africa's transformation, the African Development Bank's role, and the reform of the global financial architecture has been well executed with ideas and action points. We need to implement the roadmap as we go along. The communique of the 59th annual meetings of the Board of Governors of the African Development Bank Group with the African Development Bank, and the 50th annual meetings of the Board of Governors of the African Development Fund, which we adopted today, clearly outlines the pressing development imperatives of Africa's steadfast commitment to transformational progress. We all acknowledge the critical and urgent need to reform the global financial architecture. The reforms to strengthen the roles of the regional multilateral development banks and to build capacity to enable fit for purpose as well as flexibility with reliable, effective financial instruments that can adapt to the changing circumstances. Our strong support goes to rechanneling of the special drawing rights, SDRs, to Africa through African Development Bank, and this will signal capacity and capability of the bank. The board's approval for the general callable capital increase will protect the African Development Bank's AAA rating, which will enable the bank to maintain its rating trajectory while ensuring that it has sufficient buffer to mitigate potential external shocks. The approval will also preserve the African Development Bank's position as a strategic lender and the premier development finance institution in Africa. But specifically, the recommendations by the governors that African Development Bank should seek an independent route for a standalone AAA rating is quite encouraging and coming from the governors. I therefore convey my appreciation to my fellow governors for the efforts deployed towards the achievement of this noble and desirable outcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I humbly exit the role of the chairperson of the boards of governors of the African Development Bank Group. Allow me to extend my sincere appreciation to you, African Development Bank Group President, honorable governors, and bank senior management, and the government of Kenya officials for your unwavering support to my role as the chair over the last 1 year, which has strengthened the business of our bank. In particular, the role of the Secretary General, Professor Vincent Nemehiere, was critical in walking me the path of hosting the annual meetings. It is not easy, as you can see, the infrastructure around us. It's not easy, as you can see, that Nairobi is a favorite place. That's why we ended up having 8,300 participants. As of yesterday, when we were trying to connect even to the Wi-Fi, I was told by the providers that 11,400 people were connected at the same time. It was becoming quite challenging in terms of capacity, but we managed. So you can see the diversity of it all. Thank you. As we conclude the annual meetings in Kenya today, I'm happy to note that Honorable Governor for Côte d'Ivoire, who is here, is ready to take the baton, which I'm also ready and honored to pass on. I wish the governor all the best and avail myself for consultations when required. So as you plan your departures, guests and friends to your various destinations, we hope you have enjoyed Nairobi. I had promised the president that I will consult the gods to make sure that the rains don't come until after 5. And I think I must have made very short consultations and the responses were swift. The rains didn't come at all except the 1 or 2 days. So we are happy about that. And of course you have enjoyed, that allowed you to enjoy the hospitality, the diverse hospitality of Kenya, and sample diverse culture and also rich offerings, even including our evenings and dancing. And Kenya being one of the leading tourist destinations, you can attest to that the tourists really enjoy themselves if we could manage to enjoy even so retro after work. Otherwise, it's my singular honor at this point to wish you safe travels back home. And again, we meet again in the next annual meetings in Côte d'Ivoire in 2025. But in the intermediate, in the process of between that time and now, we know the commitments that we have made with our bank and the commitments that we need to implement for our bank so that our bank becomes bigger, better, and bolder. So we will continue with those responsibilities to implement the propositions we have agreed in this year's annual meetings. So for me, it's to say, asante sana, thank you very much, kwaheri when you go, that is goodbye in Swahili, and it's an honor to have you around here, and it was an honor to be your chairman. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask protocol to invite Mr. Lasmel Philippe, the temporary governor for Côte d'Ivoire, to come up for the handover. And protocol, could you please deliver the flag for a handover? Time. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. The handover is made. I can see CS maybe served in the military. He's trying to fold it like the military do. May I use this opportunity, therefore, Mr. Felipe? May I use this opportunity, therefore, to invite Mr. Lasmel Philippe to deliver his acceptance speech, or rather, the acceptance speech of Côte d'Ivoire.
Monsieur le First Ministre du Cabinet, Monsieur le Monsieur le Président du Conseil des gouverneurs du groupe de la Banque.
And on her behalf, allow me to extend, on behalf of the to Kenya, em nome das autoridades, pela organização bem-sucedida da 50ª. Maandalizi yenu yaliyotia fora sana ya makala ya 59 ya FDP kwa ya kila mwaka katika jiji hili zuri la Nairobi,
Kenya. De son accueil
calorosa recepção وعلى quality we've enjoyed so far. And as such, everywhere we went to, we felt at home. It is also an opportunity to say thank you to the bank bringing us here today, at the helm of which is President outgoing chairperson of the Board of Governors for all the efforts made since we last met in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt till this day. Because the chair of the Board of Governors tactfully and with a lot of clear-sightedness steered the proceedings of the Board of Governors. And today, Côte d'Ivoire has been elected to play host to the next annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group. And at this juncture, let me indicate that His Excellency Alassane Ouattara, President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, and his government are honored and delighted to host the entire Africa and the partners in Côte d'Ivoire, and through me are conveying the sincere acknowledgement and appreciation of Côte d'Ivoire to all our friends on the continent of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, you will be coming home, Côte d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, on the shores of the Ebrié Lagoon, a country of hospitality, where we will share and push for the clearly outlined ambition and vision for Africa with our development agenda. And as it is its want to do after successfully organizing the recent edition of the Africa Cup of Nations, which it won, Côte d'Ivoire will spare no efforts. Côte d'Ivoire, as I was saying, will spare no effort to work in synergy with all the stakeholders, especially the bank team, so that our next meetings will be as resounding a success as this edition. So on behalf of Honorable Governor Kaba Niale and the highest authorities of Côte d'Ivoire, let me convey our traditional akwaba to you, welcoming you all home in Côte d'Ivoire. Long live the African Development Bank, long live Africa with its solidarity and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, temporary Governor for Côte d'Ivoire, for such a wonderful acceptance speech, and of course, rubbing it in on President Adesina that Côte d'Ivoire won the Cup of Nations. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite His Excellency Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs,
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Mr. President, Dr. Akumi Adesina, Madame Adesina, my brother, Professor Njuguna Ndungu, the outgoing chair, and Mr. Felipe Lasme, representing the incoming chair. Your Excellencies, African Development Bank governors and alternate governors, representatives of the African Union Commission, honorable ministers, heads of regional economic communities, heads of international, bilateral, and regional financial institutions, delegates and shareholders, executive directors, government officials, and staff of the African Development Bank. Let me take this opportunity to extend my sincere appreciation for your active participation in the 59th annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group and the 50th annual meetings of the African Development Fund. We have witnessed a record registration of over 8,300 delegates. If you add the number of visitors who may not have registered but were here, I don't know what the figure will come to, which is a testament of commitment towards the bank's vision and agenda and the suitable position of the host as a regional hub. The theme of this year's annual meetings, Africa's Transformation, the African Development Bank Group, and the reform of the global financial architecture, provided a unique platform to address Africa's challenges and opportunities at the highest decision-making levels. The engagement of the heads of state and government in the presidential dialogues, high-level plenary sessions for the launch of the bank's flagship publication, the 2024 Africa Economic Outlook, and the thematic knowledge events underscores the critical role of both technical and political goodwill in the transformation of our economies. The theme also resonated well with the need to reform the global financial architecture to be responsive to the needs of developing countries. The envisaged economic transformation in the continent requires substantial resources to be achieved. However, the global financial architecture, as currently structured, may not be adequately aligned to deliver on the required resources. This is why Africa is rooting for a financial model which shall ensure that countries have fair and significant access to affordable and long-term concessional resources in order to close the financing gap and realize the envisaged social and economic transformation. The financial architecture we advocate today for Africa should strongly integrate the most challenging development issues of debt sustainability and climate vulnerabilities while enabling the continent to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063 commitments. I am happy to note that the bank's vision for the continent, underpinned through the high fives, strategies, and the objectives of the newly adopted 10-year strategy, 2024 to 2033, provide important basis towards the achievement of these critical continental objectives. Recycling of special drawing rights. We wish to thank the IMF Executive Board for approving the recycling of special drawing rights to multilateral development banks for use as hybrid capital. It took a long time to get to this point, and we therefore congratulate the IMF for overcoming strong opposition. Now countries must recycle their SDRs to the multilateral development banks. I am glad that the African Development Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank already have proposals on the table to accept countries' SDRs as hybrid capital, which they will leverage fourfold to increase lending to support a wide variety of projects that will advance progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. We encourage other MDBs to follow suit. The only limitation imposed by the IMF is that no more than SDR 15 billion or about US dollars 20 billion can be used as hybrid capital. But there is a potential for USD 80 billion of badly needed lending power in the MDB system. The escalating debt burden, compounded by effects of climate change and the pressure to unwind these effects in readiness for economic transformation, is critical to provide affordable and concessional long-term financing. The imperative for a strong replenishment of the 17th cycle of the African Development Fund of US dollars 25 billion cannot be overstated. This will complement support from the International Development Association, IDA, the World Bank's concessional window in supporting the low-income countries. To support this call, the government of Kenya, as you have already heard, has committed to contribute US dollars 20 million to the African Development Fund. We therefore call upon shareholders of the bank to deliver the ambition of a strong ADF. I also wish to extend my appreciation to our development partners for enabling capacity to tackle the multiple development challenges, including food insecurity, the effects of climate change, fragility, rising debt, and economic vulnerabilities. We renew our strong support for putting in place the enablers necessary to leverage the equity of African Development Fund in the international capital markets, while continuing discussions on options to ensure the fund's long-term financial sustainability, including the retention of best practices for financial and risk management. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to extend my heartfelt appreciation to Dr. Kiwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, for his exemplary leadership and unwavering dedication and transformation of the bank to effectively address the pressing development challenges of African economies. These efforts have placed the bank at the forefront of the global development community, and the bank's role has been pinned as a leading development partner through its frontier working policy, development, and support using diverse instruments to the African economies. I hereby fully reaffirm my support to his work and vision to improve the quality of lives of our people. Well, I was asking the President and his team, the Secretary General, and indeed I must ask all of you, I wonder what your weight was when the meetings were starting and whether you feel lighter today. You have done a tremendous job, all of you, and really, on behalf of the government of Kenya, we really want to acknowledge each and every one of you for having done a sterling job. On behalf of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the government of Kenya, we feel honored and privileged to have successfully hosted the 2024 Africa Development Bank annual meetings during an important time in its history that is marking its 60th anniversary. With those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a pleasant stay and a safe journey back to your respective destinations. It is now my honor to declare the 59th annual meetings of the Board of Governors of the African Development Bank and the 50th annual meetings of the Board of Governors of the African Development Fund officially closed. I thank you all.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Cabinet Secretary, for your wonderful speech. What some of you do not know is that the Honorable Prime